Module 1, Part 1, Getting Started with Excel. We're going to be going over some basic opening of a file and navigating the file, a little bit of some of the terms that go along with Excel. One thing I want you to be aware of is that if you are working on a Macintosh, which you can see I am using a MacBook Pro, and that product allows me to set up a dual operating system. I have installed a product called Parallels, and it allows me to run Windows and the Mac operating system both on the same computer. This is important because the Office for the Mac product will not work with your Excel and Access homework in the K201 class. You must be using Excel version 2016, which is also in Office 365. So you do have access to these products using cloud computing and IU Anywhere. So they can get to those through that tool at no cost. You also have the ability to download Office 2016 and Office 365 at no additional cost through IUware. Both of these options are completely legal based on the copyright laws. You are allowed to use those products at any point as long as you are affiliated with IU. So as long as you are a student, it is legal for you to use those programs. Okay, to start Excel, you'll want to use the Start button. Now, depending on the version of the Windows operating system that you have, it may say All Programs or it may say All Apps. I'm using Windows 8. I have not upgraded yet. And so once you see that, you're going to go into Excel 2016. Now, one thing that I like to do is with the programs that I use on a regular basis, such as Excel, I come down here once I have them open, and I right-click on the picture on the taskbar, and then I choose this option here to pin it to my taskbar. If you noticed, this icon is always visible on my taskbar. So I no longer have to go through the Start button to open it. I just click on this button. So that will make it easier for you if you choose to do that. Once you get here, then we're going to go to Other Workbooks so that we can find the file we want to open. I am going to click Browse, and I'm going to look for the files that were downloaded from the Q drive. So in the Q drive, you'll have an Excel folder, and inside there you should find an Excel 1, and then Module, and then you're going to find a file called Finances. When you click on it, you can choose to double click, or you can click on it once and choose Open. All right, now we have a file that we can look at. There's a few things that we want to talk about as we start this file. The first thing is the ribbon. Now with the ribbon, you can see there are several tabs The first one being the word File. This takes you to what is called our Backstage view. And you can see we can do things on this Backstage view, such as opening new, saving, closing, protecting, changing some of the setup options within Excel, things of that nature. If I don't want to make any changes here, I'm going to go to the back arrow. All right, now you can also see that there are tabs up here on my ribbon that are groups of options. These tabs are organized by what you're trying to do. So if I'm trying to add a chart or perhaps a pivot table to my worksheet, I would go to the Insert tab to insert another object. Page layout is typically designed to get it ready for printing. Formulas are all located within this tab. The one exception to that is the Home tab. And the Home tab is where Microsoft figured these are the things that we use most often, and so they grouped them onto one tab to make them quick and easy to find. Okay, you're also going to notice this quick access toolbar. We have things up here such as save, and we'll talk about undo and redo in a few minutes. We also have this option to customize our quick access toolbar. So you can come in here and add more options to that quick access toolbar. And one of the things that you can also do is switch between touch and mouse mode. So if you have a touch screen at home and want to work in touch mode, you can come in here and make that change. This option here, this is called our formula bar, and it displays the information that's entered in the active cell. And we'll talk about what the active cell is in a few minutes. This is called our name box. We'll also use that shortly. Now, one thing to be aware of is there are many more ribbon tabs than you see here. So for example, if I am working with a chart, I will get additional tabs that allow me to format and change the layout of that chart. These are called contextual tabs, and they only appear when we are working with the object that they relate to. So you're going to see them as we go through the semester, and I will show you one in just a few minutes. Okay, the first thing we need to understand about some of the terms is the difference between a workbook, a worksheet, and a cell. So a workbook is the entire file that we opened. So we opened a workbook called Finances. Now, it has multiple worksheets that we can use to enter different types of information or to organize the information within the workbook. Those worksheets are identified down here at the bottom by your worksheet tabs. So for example, if I want to change the active worksheet, I can click on a different tab, such as Income Statement, and now that is the active worksheet. So whichever worksheet you see highlighted down here at the bottom, that tab is the active worksheet and the information you are looking at. So if I switch again to expenses, you will see an example of those contextual tabs we were referring to. Because this is displayed in the form of a chart, I now have chart tools, design, and format, which are contextual tabs that I did not see before. If I switch to balance sheet, you can see that even though there are charts here, because my highlight is in a cell, not clicking on the chart, you do not see those contextual tabs. But as soon as I click on one of the charts, those tabs become available to me so that I can work on modifying that chart. If you click anywhere else in the worksheet, those tabs will go away. Now, a cell is the combination or the intersection between a column and a row, and they are referenced by the combination of the column letter and the row number. So we have an active cell called A1 that we are sitting in right now. Let's go back to our income statement. And now we're going to talk about the ways that you can move around within the worksheet. So obviously we have some scrolling bars. So you can use the scrolling arrows to move the visual down. You can use the scrolling bars. If you noticed, when you use these scrolling arrows, it did not actually move the active cell. It just moved the visual. If I want to move the active cell, I can click on it. I can use my up arrow or down arrow keys. I can use the page up and page down. And then there are some certain specialty functions. For example, if I hold down the control key and hit home, it will always go to A1. Those examples of special navigation keys are in your text in Excel 10 is the page number. And it's figure 1-7. So if you want to use those, you can look them up and make them available. I don't use a lot of the special keys as much. I tend to use the arrow keys or click on the cell that I want. Another way that we can move around is by using under the editing group and the select and find and select option. There is an option there that says go to. So I can type a reference down here, a cell reference. So I'm going to tell it to take me to column B, row 34. And it will move me automatically down to that option. Another way to move is using this name box that I pointed out earlier. You can type a cell reference in there, A1. When you hit enter, it will return you to that cell. We'll see later on in the semester that you could actually name the cells. So if we wanted to call B8 net sales, we would be able to type the name in here, net sales, and move to it that way. But we'll see that a little later in the semester. Now that's moving one cell at a time. Perhaps we would like to be able to select a group of cells all at once. So what we would do, there's several ways to do that. If they are adjacent cells, which means they're all next to each other with no blank spaces in between, we can do that by the drag and drop, and also by using a combination with the shift key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you both. So if I wanted to select the range of cells A5 through B8, so I want all of them in that range to be highlighted, I would click on the first one, which is A5. And one way to do this is to just drag until you go down to B8 and then release the mouse. This object that appeared at the bottom is called our Quick Analysis button, and we will be using that several times throughout the semester. Another way to select a group of adjacent cells is to hold the shift key down, and after you click the first one and then click the last one. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to click on A5, then I'm going to hold down my shift key and click on B8. You can see that that also selected all of the adjacent range and gave us our quick analysis tool button. Now if I did not want all of them, I only wanted A5 and B8, not everything else. Then you have to use the control key because these are non-adjacent cells. They don't sit next to each other. What the control key does is once I click the first key and then I hold my control key down, any keys that I click on are going to, or cells, any cells that I click on will be highlighted. So if I wanted B8, I could click on that. If I wanted A10, I would click on that, and maybe I wanted B14. You can see that all four of those items are now highlighted, but nothing in between. So that's the difference between the control and the shift. So let's use a combination of those so that we can highlight two different groups of cells. So we're going to do A5 through B8. We don't want row 9. We're going to select A10 through B14. So I'm going to click on A1 to get rid of all of my highlighting. And I'm going to start out by using the shift technique to select the first group. So I select A5, hold my shift key, and choose B8. Now that I have that first group selected, I'm going to press my control key, and this time you must use the drag option to select the second range. So we're going to click on A10 and then drag it to B14. Then release your mouse and your control key. And you can see that both segments are selected. The last thing we're going to do in this segment is we're going to close the workbook. Now obviously I could click this X up here, but it's important to remember that that X is going to close Excel. So if you're just done working with this workbook, but you want to keep Excel open, then you do not want to click that X. What you want to do is you want to come to your Backstage menu or your Backstage view by clicking the word File. And if you go down, you'll see that one of the options is to close. I do not want to change or save any of the changes that we did during this, so I'm just going to say don't save. And you can see now we're ready to begin working with another workbook. We could choose File and then choose to open if we had an existing one that we wanted to pick. Browse allows us to search our computer in all the various folders that we save our files and look for the one we want. We also have a recent menu here that shows us several that we recently had opened and worked with. So we could choose one of those if we were continuing work that we had done, for example, yesterday. You also have access to this new option if we wanted to just start a brand new blank one. We'll talk about these templates and other options that you see here a little later in the semester. But for now, we're going to end this recording and come back for part 2 of our Module 1, where we start working with a new workbook and look at entering data and resizing columns.